Okay, so when you close your eyes and picture a firefighter, what's the first image that comes to mind? Seriously.
It's probably a statue, right?
Exactly. Someone a stoic, fearless, jawline carved from granite. He's bursting through a door with an axe to save a baby.
And not even breaking a sweat. It's the hero with a capital H. That's the archetype we've all been fed from movies, calendars.
We see the uniform, the bravery, the big shiny red trucks. We almost never see the messy, confusing, and sometimes just plain weird reality that's going on underneath the gear.
We forget there's a human being in there.
And that is exactly why this deep dive is going to be different. We are not doing some PR piece today. We are unpacking a raw, unfiltered, and honestly sometimes hilarious interview.
It's between comedian Theo and a retired FDNY legend named Tony Bonfiglio. When you say raw, you mean it. This one goes places.
It really does. And legend isn't a term we're just throwing around here. Tony served for over 20 years, mostly in Ladder 34 in Washington Heights.
And if you know anything about New York City history, that means he was front and center for, well, for everything. The crack epidemic in the 80s, the crime waves of the 90s.
And he was right there on the pile at Ground Zero on 9/11.
But the mission today isn't just to, list his accomplishments. It's to strip away that mythology. We're looking at the man behind the badge.
We're going to explore the accidental, and I mean totally accidental path he took to even get the job, what a burning building actually feels and sounds and smells like.
And the incredibly dark humor that keeps these guys from losing their minds. It's a fascinating case study in duality, really. That's the theme I want you to keep in mind.
Duality is the perfect word. You have the pure terror of crawling down a pitch-black hallway, but 5 minutes later, you have the absurdity of a junkie with cake icing on his face.
It's the grit versus the ridiculousness.
So let's start at the very beginning, because Tony did not grow up dreaming of this. He wasn't the kid with the plastic helmet. He was a blue-collar kid from New Hyde Park, just outside Queens.
And his jobs before the FDNY, they sound like something out of a novel.
Seriously. He talks about working in a meat factory in Mineola. And let's be clear, this wasn't some management gig.
No.
He describes scraping fat and blood off the floors of the hangar room. It was freezing cold. He's wearing these white coats, just surrounded by carcasses.
It really frames his work ethic. I mean, this is a guy who knows what actual grime is.
The detail that really got me, though, was the freezer men. Did you catch that?
Oh, yeah. The guys who work deep in the sub-zero freezers.
He said they wore hoods and parkas and looked like they were on an Antarctic expedition, and he said they never came out. As a kid, he was genuinely terrified of them.
It paints such a vivid picture of that old-school industrial grind. You do your job, you stay in your lane, you survive the cold.
But the strangest detail from his factory days, it has to be the vegetable oil.
Oh, the vegetable oil. This is where the story just gets so specific. So Tony and his buddies are the cleanup crew.
Right, and the factory has these massive 55-gallon drums of vegetable oil, and instead of using it for cooking,
they use it to polish the black delivery trucks. They're literally detailing the fleet with cooking oil.
Which is just wild to think about. He said it worked great in the short term, made the trucks look all waxed and shiny.
But there's a catch.
Oh, yeah. After a day or two in the sun, the oil would turn rancid. He said the entire fleet just smelled like old, rotting fat.
He just screams, I need a better job.
And that's exactly what happened. A neighbor, a guy named Johnny Lima, literally just hands him an application for the FDNY, tells him, you'll never get rich, but it'll put a roof over your head.
Stability. That's the goal. So he takes the written test, and from his description, it wasn't exactly the SATs.
Not at all. He said it was like third grade level stuff. One of the questions was actually, what do you use to dig dirt? A shovel or a plow?
So he scores a 98, easy enough. But this is where the story almost ends before it even begins, the physical test.
Right, at the armory. And this thing is grueling. You've got the mile run, the 8-foot wall, and then the ledge walk.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. You're in full gear coat, helmet, mask, all this heavy stuff, and you have to balance on a narrow beam sliding sideways against a wall.
It's a test of balance, of nerve.
Tony does it, gets to the end, comes back, and the score gives him a 0.
A 0. And back then, a 0 on any one station meant you failed the whole thing. No averaging.
He was done. He thought his life was over. He describes driving home just convinced he blew his one shot at a real career.
But obviously we know that's not what happened. And the reason why is this massive just twist of fate.
A lawsuit.
Exactly.
Ugh.
At that exact time, there was a huge class action lawsuit about women firefighters. The argument was that the entrance exams were discriminatory.
And because of that legal fight, the hiring list was frozen for 6 years.
6 years. They couldn't make a new list of candidates, but
Right.
the city still needed firefighters. So to fill the ranks, the department had to dig deep, really deep into the existing list.
All the way down to number 4,300.
And guess who was number 4,300?
Tony Bonfiglio. The lawsuit designed to get women on the job actually saved the career of this traditional blue-collar guy who technically failed.
The irony is incredible. He even says it in the interview. He thanks the women. It's
Yeah.
just a perfect example of how history works in these weird, unpredictable ways.
So he gets in, he beats odds, gets assigned to Ladder 34 in Washington Heights. Now, before we get to his rookie stories, we should probably clarify something.
Oh yeah, truck versus engine.
Right, because I think a lot of us civilians just mix them up.
Totally different jobs. The engine company is all about water, the hoses, the pumps. Their job is to put the wet stuff on the red stuff. They put the fire out.
And the truck, or ladder company.
They're about tools and access, forcible entry, search and rescue, cutting holes in roofs for ventilation. It's a more physical, tool-heavy job.
And Tony was a truck guy. As a rookie, a probie, his job was can man. He carried the fire extinguisher.
Which leads to his first big fire. And I love this story because it just shatters that perfect hero image.
It's 3:30 in the morning, a project building. They get to the hallway, and he describes the smoke as shimmering satin curtains.
What a description.
Isn't it? It's pitch black. You can't see your own hand, but he can see the heat shimmering. And he admits it. He was terrified. He wanted to quit right there.
He's crawling on his hands and knees, dragging this heavy extinguisher.
And his lieutenant, this salty old-timer, yells, "Get it, kid." So Tony points the hose at the fire, squeezes the handle.
Nothing happens.
Absolutely nothing. He forgot to put air in the extinguisher. He filled it with water, but he never pressurized it. It's basically just a heavy metal bucket.
Oh no, that is the ultimate rookie mistake.
Yeah.
You show up to a fire with a fire extinguisher that doesn't work.
Can you imagine the panic? He's thinking he's going to get fired on the spot. But the lieutenant's reaction is, well, it's perfect. Later, back at the firehouse, Tony goes to apologize.
Expecting to get his head ripped off.
And the lieutenant just wipes his face with a towel and says, "Don't worry, kid. Shit happens."
That moment of grace probably saved his entire career, his confidence.
And then Tony talks about the aftermath of that first fire. You know, they overhaul the apartment, they throw a burning mattress out the window, and he looks out and sees the sun rising over the Manhattan skyline. He said the grass looked greener, the sky looked bluer. He felt so alive.
That's that adrenaline dump. Confronting death and surviving, it just makes life feel more vivid. But that feeling stood in stark contrast to the neighborhood he was in, Washington Heights in the 80s and 90s. That was a tough place.
Yeah, he talks about the drugs, crime, but the stories that really stick with you are the ones that are just absurd, the ones that don't make sense.
The car game story is a perfect example of that. It really shows you how desensitized people can become.
Right. So they get a call for a fire. They burst into this apartment. Axe is ready. And there are 8 people just sitting at a table, calmly playing cards and eating.
And the firefighters are just confused. They're like, why did you call us? And the people don't even get up. They just point to the back of the apartment and say,
"We think something's burning in the back."
"You passed the salt. And also the bedroom's on fire." But the absurdity just turns to tragedy in a split second.
This is the hard part of the job. They go to the back, they kick open these French doors, and the room is just an inferno. And they find a little girl behind the door. She didn't make it.
And the thing that haunts Tony, the thing he can't get over, is that the card players, they never said she was back there.
That's heartbreaking, and it shifts everything from, adventure to deep trauma. He talks about performing CPR on her, and he says he can still recall the specific smell and taste of burnt lips.
Ugh, that the visceral detail. It shows that trauma isn't just emotional, it's sensory. It stays with you. He also mentions the new windows in that story, which is a technical detail with a really grim consequence.
Right, the so-called mob windows.
Yeah, the local crime families had installed these expensive unbreakable windows for security. But in a fire, normal windows shatter, and that lets heat and smoke out. These didn't break. They turned the apartments into pressurized ovens.
And to cope with that kind of horror, the apathy, the burnt lips, you have to develop a very dark sense of humor. Which brings us to the junkie.
The junkie lighting fires in a vacant building to stay warm. This brings the absurdity right back.
3 times in one night, they responded to this one guy. 3 times. They're climbing 6 flights of stairs, which, in a vacant building, you were just climbing the risers.
It's exhausting.
So by the third trip, they are frozen, they are furious, they find the guy again. But this time, Tony notices something on the guy's face. Vanilla
A
icing.
vanilla icing mustache.
In a burnt-out building.
Because while the firefighters were out putting out his fire the second time, the guy had broken into their firehouse and eaten their dessert.
He ate the Entenmann's cake right off the kitchen table. It's just,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. You're angry, you're exhausted, but you're staring at a guy covered in vanilla icing. It's the definition of dark comedy.
It is. And that humor is a survival mechanism. You have to laugh at, or the other stuff, the tragedy will just destroy you.
Because nothing could prepare anyone for what came next. We have to talk about September 11th.
Yeah. And Tony's account is, it's different from what we're used to. It's immediate and chaotic. He was off duty that day, running his painting business. He sees it on TV, drops everything, and just drives his work van into the city.
He describes going 100 miles an hour down the shoulder, commandeering a friend's Suburban, entering the Midtown Tunnel.
Yeah.
He said it was like a time warp.
And when they get there, the sensory details shift. It wasn't loud, it was silent.
The silence and the pass alarms.
Right, and for anyone who doesn't know, a pass alarm is a device every firefighter wears. If you stop moving for 30 seconds, it lets out this piercing screech so they can find you in the smoke.
So when Tony describes hearing hundreds of them chirping,
It meant there were hundreds of firefighters buried in the rubble, not moving. That is the sound of a mass casualty event for a first responder. Just a chilling detail.
he says their mission just shifted so fast they thought they were there to be an ambulance service to transport the injured.
But they realized very quickly, there were no bodies to transport. Where are the patients?
Yeah.
There are no patients.
And in that horror, he shares these surreal, almost hallucinatory moments, like finding a young firefighter, they called him Monkey Man, just sitting alone in the lobby of the crushed Marriott Hotel.
This kid is just sitting there, covered in dust, staring at a phone with a blinking light. He looks up at Tony and just says, "All my guys are dead."
And they have to keep moving. They climb up the rubble 3 stories high and crawl through a window into a women's fashion store.
Completely intact, just covered in dust. And he's looking under racks of expensive clothing for survivors. It's such a jarring image.
I do want to touch on one specific thing he said about Building 7. There's been so much conspiracy talk over the years about that collapse.
He addresses it head on. He was there. He says he saw Building 7 burning on every floor all day long. From his perspective on the ground, there was no mystery. The damage from the towers and the unchecked fires brought it down. It's an important eyewitness account.
But even in hell, you see humanity. He remembers women setting up plywood tables on the edge of the site, just making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the rescuers.
And the cost of being there. He mentions ground glass lung. The air wasn't just dust. It was pulverized glass, cement, asbestos. They were breathing that for weeks. It's a health crisis that followed them for the rest of their lives.
You know, through all of this, the trauma, the terror, Tony keeps coming back to the brotherhood, the bond. And so much of that is built around the kitchen table.
The firehouse kitchen is the heart of the whole operation. And if you can't cook, you are going to hear about it. Tony's signature dish is clam sauce casino.
Which sounds amazing, but the culture isn't just about food, it's about busting each other's chops. And that brings us to my favorite story of the whole interview, the prank.
This just encapsulates the firefighter spirit perfectly. It shows that even heroes are scammers sometimes.
So, Tony and a rookie named Kenny are at a fire, and a ceiling collapses on them. They get banged up, but they're mostly okay. But Kenny had a softball injury on his leg, a big scrape from sliding into a base.
Right. And Tony sees an opportunity. He tells Kenny, peel the bandage off that scrape and tell the doctor it's a burn from the fire.
They want a few days of medical leave, so they do it. They're standing outside the fire scene looking all pathetic. Tony's holding his neck, Kenny's showing off his burn. A photographer snaps their picture.
They think, maybe we'll be in the paper.
They end up on the cover of a magazine.
A magazine cover. Looking like war heroes, all bandaged up, neck braces on.
But the punchline is what happens when they get back to the firehouse. The guys frame the magazine cover and hang it on the wall, but they change the captions.
Instead of hero firefighters injured, the captions point to other people in the photo. There's a woman in the background looking at them, and her caption says, "I know these motherfrikers are faking it."
It's brilliant. It's that self-regulating culture. We know you're scamming. We're not going to rat you out, but we are absolutely going to make fun of you for the rest of your career.
It brings it all full circle. You have the guy who drives 100 miles an hour toward a collapsing tower, and that same guy will fake a leg injury to get out of a shift.
And that, I think, is the core message here. We want our heroes to be perfect statues.
Mhm.
But Tony Bonfiglio shows us that heroism is really just a job done by regular, flawed, funny, sometimes screw-up guys.
Who just happen to be willing to do the things the rest of us aren't.
It's the willingness to act that matters. The name of his book is Tales from the Tiller, by the way, if you want more of these stories. And yes, he includes the clam sauce recipe.
Highly recommended. It's a great reminder that history is made by people who sometimes forget to put air in the fire extinguisher, but they go into the fire anyway.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the real life of a New York City firefighter. We'll catch you on the next one.
Stay safe out there.